Welcome, I'm Suma Katauka and you are watching World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Russia's Belgorod governor Vyacheslav Gladkov has stated that Ukrainian strike has damaged a dam on local reservoir. Warning that repeated attacks could cause flooding, he has urged residents of Shebekino and Bezlivyudovka near the Ukrainian border to evacuate, as the region has faced frequent strikes since the war began in 2022. Furthermore, the latest Russian aerial attack on Kyiv has killed 2 people and injured 10 others, damaging homes, cars, and a kindergarten, according to Kyiv military official, while Ukraine's Air Force has said that it shot down 4 of 9 missiles and 50 of 62 drones, but reported 5 direct missile hits and 12 drone strikes on 11 sites nationwide. Britain's Labour government plans to halve the tax-free cash ISA limit from £20,000 to about £10,000 in the November budget, aiming to shift savers towards investing in shares, as The Telegraph reported. As Financial Services Minister Lucy Rigby has said that the move seeks to build a shareholding democracy. Thai Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul will meet U.S. President Donald Trump in Kuala Lumpur on Sunday. The Thai government has announced the meeting will take place before a ceasefire signing ceremony with Cambodia. However, Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul has cancelled his upcoming ASEAN trip to honor the Queen's passing today. The United States imposes sanctions on Colombian President Gustavo Petro, accusing Bogotá of failing to stop the flow of cocaine into America. Trump has branded Petro an illegal drug leader, a charge the Colombian president strongly denies. Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro has accused the United States of fabricating a new war after Washington deployed the world's largest warship, the USS Gerald R. Ford, to the Caribbean. The move marks a major escalation in U.S. military power as President Donald Trump considers land action in Venezuela amid strikes on alleged drug targets and fears of regime change. Thailand's Queen Mother Sirikit has passed away at the age of 93. The Thai Royal Household Bureau has announced today her death prompted a 1-year mourning period for the royal family, with flags flown at half-mast for a month. France's Louvre Museum has moved part of its crown jewels collection to the Bank of France's underground vault, following a $102 million daylight heist that exposed major security flaws. The October 19th robbery had sparked national outrage and intense scrutiny over the world's most visited museum security measures. Now we start with Russia and Ukraine. The Ukrainian armed forces carried out a strike on the dam of the Belgorod reservoir, causing major damage to the hydraulic structure. According to Vyacheslav Gladkov, who is the governor of the Belgorod region, the dam has sustained structural damage as a result of this attack. He has also hinted at the possibility that Ukrainian troops could attempt further strikes to destroy the facility completely. Gladkov has stated that if the dam is destroyed, the flooding could impact parts of the river flood plain on the side of the Kharkov region, as well as several streets in local settlements with a combined population of about 1,000 people. Now for this discussion, we welcome Major General retired G.G. Dwivedi. He's a defense analyst, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General, for joining us again. Good to see you. Thank you. Now looking at this, how might the ongoing U.S.-Russia's communication and how do you analyze Russian envoy today? This morning we saw statements coming in from Russian envoy that the United States, Russia and Ukraine were quite close to a diplomatic solution to end the Russia-Ukraine war. What's your analysis on current Russia-US relations?
Well, Suma, firstly, always a pleasure to be on the NewsX world.
Thank you.
Well, the question you asked is very pertinent, but we need to understand what is playing on President Putin's mind. It is apparent that President Putin is in no mood to end up the war anytime soon until his conditions are met categorically. And he wants a big chunk of the Donbass region. He also is looking forward to a commitment that there will be no further NATO expansion eastwards. And until these conditions are met, I don't think President Putin is in any mood to call off the war anytime soon. Now, the point is whether they were close to any negotiation or this is only conjecturing, but the mere fact is that President Trump and President Putin meeting that are planned, President Trump called it off because he quite understood that President Putin is not going to yield ground and this meeting could be quite infructuous and waste of time. Now, what is going on the battlefield? Primarily, both the sides are targeting the energy infrastructure because winters are coming soon. And once you target the energy infrastructure, that's going to have a deep impact on the public at large and that will hit the morale of the public. And this strike on the Belgorod by the Ukrainian is one such operation. And well, it could quite cause a humanitarian crisis because in case the dam blows up, there would be flooding, and that means a certain degree of either the casualties or the civilians will be have to be displaced. So, in nutshell, what I can say is that there are no indications that war in Ukraine is going to end anytime soon because President Putin is not in state of mind to end this war, and these type of strikes like the Russians yesterday on the Ukrainian capital is once again tells that it doesn't matter what the end result of the casualties are, but the war will go on. So I feel that this type of operation will carry on. I don't really see any end of the war anytime soon, Asuma.
And yes, building on that, Major General, we don't see it slowing down. Instead we see it escalating with also the attack on dam and then the attack on the strikes on Kyiv that has killed 2 people. Why do you think Russia made such statements? What do you think the timing suggests?
Well, the war goes on 2 planes. One is the diplomatic and political plane, one is on the ground, that is on the battlefield. So, Russia want to show that, well, they are keen to end the war, but it is on the other side that they are not getting the right response. So, these are all the political and diplomatic moves, but what we need to gauge is what's going on the ground. And there's no slowing of operations by Russia on the ground, and you rightly said that they are escalating, and now soon the winter will set in, the ground operation will almost come to a halt, but nonetheless the aerial warfare will continue, and all I can say is that it is the diplomatic maneuvers that Russia is trying to convey to the world, but in actuality the ground situation doesn't match with the political statement, Asuma.
And now bringing Europe into our conversation, we saw a lot of European countries oppose welcoming. Of course, Trump is to be, not Trump, sorry, Putin is to be arrested under ICC. And to what extent could European efforts to limit U.S.-Russia direct dialogue affect diplomatic opportunities for conflict resolution and regional stability in Eastern Europe? How do you see this?
Well, the point is, Suma, Europe is directly affected with the operations that are going on. And you also saw the certain amount of escalation because Russia has been violating the airspace, especially in terms when it came to Poland, and then also on the Baltic republics lately there have been air violations. So to that extent, the Russians have been very provocative and possibly judging the European response. So I think Europe is now more closely involved in this war because Russia actually is provocating and also trying to gauge what is the European reaction and also trying to exploit the certain differences that are there between US and the European Union. But the point is that as far as European Union is concerned, it has certain constraints. Firstly, all the European countries are not on the same page and they don't see the war as such from the same lens. And the second point is, while they like to convey a strong message to Russia, they don't want to get involved in this war directly. So the point I'm trying to make is, while Russia is provocative, but at the same time, Europe doesn't want to escalate, but they will definitely increase the military support and otherwise the political support as well. And I think even President Trump has realized that Putin is not in mood to end the war. So I think those equipment and missiles, especially Tomahawk, there is a debate going on. Possibly they could further increase the military aid because Ukraine can only survive and fight if only they get the weapons and the financial support. So I leave it at that, that as far as Europe is concerned, they will definitely like to convey a message to Putin that their provocative action will be met very sternly, but at the same time, they won't like to get involved in this fight directly. Asuma.
Yes, indeed. Always great learning from you, Major General. Thank you for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now we move on to Middle East. Yemen's Houthi rebels are reportedly expected to announce the deaths of several leaders that were killed in Israeli and American strikes. The group had earlier held off on making the declarations during the ongoing war in Gaza, maintaining an information blackout and postponing funerals until hostilities subsided. Only last week, Houthis reported that one of their senior-most military figures, Chief of Staff Mohammed Abd al-Karim al-Ghamari, was recently killed while carrying out his duties. Israel, too, had claimed responsibility for the strike that took his life. In other developments, the Houthis have recently detained 7 Yemeni UN workers on accusations of spying for Israel. Earlier this week, 20 UN staff members, including 15 foreigners, were released after being held in their compound following a sudden raid. Now for this discussion, we go back to retired Major General Gigi Dwivedi. He's a defense analyst, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General, for staying with us. Now, Houthis' such actions, such as detaining UN workers and intensifying their stance against perceived foreign interference, and also now announcing or upcoming announcement for what damage the US and Israeli strikes have done, does it strengthen Yemen's political independence, or do they risk further international isolation and humanitarian consequences for the Yemeni people?
Well, Asuma, first and foremost, in the last 2 years of Israeli operation against whether it is Hamas or Hezbollah or Houthis, have taken a very heavy toll of all these 3 outfits, and they have suffered extensively, especially because Israelis have targeted their leadership. And this is exactly what Houthis have been trying to suppress, because when you make it public that their leadership has suffered extensive damage, this lowers the morale of the rank and file of those outfits. But now, how long can you hide such, a damage or such reverses? So Houthis have to come out, and you rightly said that Al-Ghamari al-Karim was one of the top leaders who was knocked out by the Israelis, and now they have to accept it, and they will go in for these new crop of leaders. So point I'm trying to make is that over the last 2 years, all these outfits have suffered extensively, and especially their top leadership has been willy-nilly wiped out. Now there's a civil war is going on in Yemen, and Houthis are being still backed by the Iranians. Well, this war is on, and I don't think this is going to come to end anytime soon, because Houthis still remain a force to reckon with, and they are not going to give up the gains what they have actually, accrued the advantage on the ground. So I feel that these actions by either holding up hostages of local Yemeni citizens, or at times even holding hostages, oblique detaining the UN workers, these are all actions to show that they are still in the game and they are still forced to reckon with. But on the whole, Houthis have been considerably weakened and the leadership has taken a lot of damage. And I think their ability to fight out or carry out the hybrid war has been reduced to a very large extent.
Yes,
Asuma.
indeed. Thank you very much, Major General Gigi Dwivedi, for joining us and sharing that insight and staying with us throughout our news as a defense analyst. Now we stay in the region. Israeli drone strikes have hit a car in the southern Lebanese town of Harouf, according to local media reports. There is no immediate comments from the Israeli Defense Forces so far. The concerned attack has killed 2 people, with one identified as Abbas Hassan Karky, who happens to be the logistics commander of Hezbollah's southern front headquarters. Meanwhile, the Israeli military has responded that he was involved in rebuilding Hezbollah's military capabilities and managing weapons storage in South Lebanon. These Israeli strikes come despite a United States brokered truce that began in November 2024. Under the agreement, Israeli forces were to withdraw from southern Lebanon and Hezbollah was to pull back north of the Litan River and dismantle military infrastructure in the south. Moreover, the Lebanese government has too moved to disarm Hezbollah under U.S. pressure that the militant group and its allies have opposed the plan indefinitely. Now for this discussion, we welcome Ross Feingold. He's a political analyst, joins us live from Taipei. Thank you very much, Ross, for joining us. Good to see you. Ross, now looking at this news, do you think that Hezbollah will be armed by the end of this year, as we only have 2 months left before, as Lebanese government had announced earlier this year?
The reality is it's extremely unlikely that Hezbollah will ever disarm. If they disarm entirely, they're going to lose their influence over southern Lebanon, or frankly over the central government as well. So they don't really have much incentive to disarm. On the other hand, the central government and the national army, they're not really willing to go to war with Hezbollah over this. So ultimately, the key players and the key factors here are going to be the international community and the key stakeholders, the governments that provide aid to Lebanon, and what kind of attitude or hardline attitude they're going to take. But the reality is so many of those governments at the moment are focused on Gaza and the aftermath of the ceasefire and providing aid and rebuilding and how to deal with Hamas and disarming Hamas, that the situation in Lebanon might kind of go on the way it is right now, where Hezbollah has been weakened, but they have not given up all their weapons, and the central government doesn't really have the ability to force that. And the result of all of that would be occasionally Israel is going to have to take action.
And building on that and looking at this, Hezbollah is although weakened, unlikely to disarm. Could these targeted assassinations of Hezbollah commanders, such as the one we saw today of Abbas Hassan Karky, do you think this could lead to renewed large-scale conflict between Israel and Hezbollah, or might they push both sides towards renegotiating the terms of truce?
Maybe not a renegotiating of truce, but there would definitely be some pressure from those key stakeholders, whether that's the United States or United Arab Emirates, Turkey. They certainly would pressure the Israelis and Hezbollah to avoid a full-scale war. But that, again, it still leaves us in the current situation, which would be that Hezbollah won't give up its weapons entirely. And sometimes Israel is going to have no choice but to take action to safeguard its own national security, as we've seen in recent hours.
And do you think there could be any other, any country that could mediate between them, like U.S., Turkey, or Qatar? Iran, maybe?
Well, the problem there is that these countries are busy in Gaza right now. I think their desire or their bandwidth to participate in any kind of mediation in Lebanon is pretty limited. They're making a big commitment to Gaza, not just in terms of money or potentially people, if people are going to be working for the interim government or sending police or military troops as part of a stabilization force, but they've also put their prestige on the line with trying to move forward in Gaza. So again, are they really willing to put that same amount of reputation and prestige into further negotiations in Lebanon? I would say probably not. They'd rather just see the kind of the status quo we have right now, which is generally peaceful, but when necessary, Israel will take action. At the same time, they know the reality, which is Hezbollah will not fully disarm.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Ross Feingold, for sharing that insight and joining us from Taipei. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now we move on to Asia. The Thailand government has announced that Thai Prime Minister Anutin Charnvirakul will meet U.S. President Donald Trump in Kuala Lumpur tomorrow ahead of the signing ceremony for a ceasefire declaration with Cambodia. Officials say the agreement will be a declaration rather than a full peace deal, signing both Thailand and Cambodia's intention to normalize relations. Thailand's Prime Minister will travel to Malaysia on Saturday, delaying his trip by 1 day to sign this ceasefire deal with Cambodia, although he will cut short his attendance at the ASEAN summit in South Korea due to the death of the Thai Queen Mother, Her Majesty Queen Sirikit. Now for this discussion, we go back to Ross Feingold. He's a political analyst, joins us live from Taipei. Thank you very much, Ross, for staying with us. Now, looking at this news, officials said the agreement will be a declaration rather than a full peace deal. What does that exactly mean in terms of Cambodia and Thailand?
It means they're kind of making a commitment to President Trump, as well as Malaysia, which is Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, because he's the current chair of ASEAN. They're kind of making a commitment not to resume hostilities anytime soon. But if it's not really a formal agreement with border demarcation and other conditions, then the possibility does exist that they will resume hostilities at some point. We know from recent history that this does flare up every few years. But at least in the interim, it seems that under pressure from the United States as well as from ASEAN, they're willing to sign this document and basically say, we understand that we should both control ourselves for the short term.
And as you say, this hostility might continue as this is just like a band-aid solution. How might this ceasefire declaration between these two countries could it reshape regional stability and cooperation in mainland Southeast Asia?
Probably won't have much of an effect. The big issue coming out of the recent exchange of gunfire was that a lot of economic interaction between Thailand and Cambodia across their long border and various border crossings came to a halt. A lot of Cambodians who were working in Thailand returned to Cambodia. A lot of trade came to a halt, whether in agriculture or other products, and that was just bad for the people who live in the border regions in both countries. So I think people on the ground do want normal life and normal economic activity to resume as quickly as possible. When it comes to broader initiatives, you asked about mainland Southeast Asia more widely. I mean, there's lots of initiatives under ASEAN, whether that's related to trade, transportation integration, even energy integration. Those things are going to proceed fairly smoothly going forward. I think most ASEAN countries are generally big fans of those mechanisms and are committed to those multilateral mechanisms working going forward.
And looking at this ceasefire or declaration, rather than a full peace deal, however, U.S. was involved. So how do you think the U.S.'s involvement changes anything? Do you think because U.S. was involved, this ceasefire or this declaration of could hold longer?
Again, it will probably hold for the interim because neither country, neither Thailand nor Cambodia, want to offend President Trump, and also they don't want to offend their fellow ASEAN members as well. And clearly, it was important to ASEAN to bring these hostilities to an end as quickly as possible. So I think both Thailand and Cambodia are incentivized to maintain the peace. Now, we do have some instability in Thailand, political instability. They're going to have an election sooner or later. We have governments that have fallen, or prime ministers that have fallen repeatedly in the last few years. So nationalism might become part of the political discussion in Thailand in the medium term. But for now, it seems that both countries do have incentive to keep the peace.
And lastly, looking at Thailand, who was this late Thai queen Sirikit, and what legacy does she leave behind?
She was widely loved, as was her husband, the former king. They had ruled for literally decades, since around 1950. And they were really highly respected across society for their devotion to country and duty, their involvement with charity. And although Thailand has had very volatile politics through those decades, throughout the Cold War period and post-Cold War period, the royalty was always seen as generally above that, and that's one of the reasons why it was highly respected. So it certainly will be a unifying moment for the people of Thailand, hopefully across their political divide. And their political divide remains very, very deep. But hopefully this will be a unifying moment as people reflect on her contribution over many, many years, keeping in mind she was 93 when she passed away.
Yes, thank you very much, Ross Feingold, for joining us and sharing that insight as a political analyst and joining us from Taipei. Thank you. Now we stay in the region. In Seoul, more than 1,000 protesters gathered in the heart of the city to voice strong opposition to U.S. President Donald Trump's upcoming visit for the APEC summit. The protesters were particularly angered by President Trump's insistence that South Korea invest $350 billion upfront in the United States as part of a trade and tariff deal. Let's listen into what one of them has said.
나라 살림을 더 많이 지금 돌봐야 되는 상황에 미국이 너무 뜬금없이 강압적으로 그리고 강탈적이라고 저는 생각하는데요. 3,500억 달러라고 하는 말도 안 되는 거의 뭐 우리나라의 외환 보유고의 80%에 육박하는 비용을 갑작스럽게 미국에 투자하라고 요구하는 거 너무 강압적이라고 생각하고요. 그래서 대한민국이 이것에 대해서 더 거부 의사를 당당히 밝혀야 된다고 생각합니다. 특히 다음 주에 아펙이 앞두고 있고 이제 트럼프 대통령이 방한한다. 그리고 한미 정상에 뭔가 회담이 있거나 북미 정상회담 뭐 이런 여러 굵직한 사안들을 앞두고 있다고 하는데요. 이럴 때 대한민국 국민들의 분노를 오늘부터 더 강력하게 좀 전하고 싶어서 집회